Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show, where we help you make the wisest and most profitable decisions. My name is Dr. Gleb Tsipursky. I'm the CEO of Disaster Avoidance Experts, the future of work consultancy that sponsors the Wise Decision Maker Show. And today with me is Meg Madison, who is the VP of Human Resources at Shure. So would you please share with us, Meg, what Shure does?
Absolutely. Thank you. Shure Incorporated is an audio company. We're a technology organization that's headquartered in the Chicagoland area. We've actually been around almost 100 years. We'll be celebrating 100 years just a few years hence. And we make audio solutions. We make products such as microphones, headphones, gear for professional broadcasters, musicians, and everyday users like me that might need equipment to facilitate being heard.
And so I helped something like 23 companies transition to hybrid work right now, figuring by this time. And one of the big challenges that they're experiencing is hybrid meetings, how to have effective meetings where some people are coming in virtually and some people are in the room. And of course, your company works on this a lot, both in providing services for this and internally. So can you reflect on what you found to be best practices for effective hybrid meetings, both within your internal meetings and from what you're seeing with clients?
Yeah, they're very intertwined. So I think it's a very astute question. First of all, we focus very heavily on meeting equity. And what we mean by that is we have associates, which is what we call our employees. We have employees not only throughout the nation, but all over the world. And for us to be fully successful as an organization, we need to make sure that they're all fully contributory, that they're all participating, and that they have a way to not only have a seat at the table, but importantly, a voice at the table. So making sure that we set up virtual experiences in a way that facilitates that equity, that meeting equity, I think is just absolutely critical. And sometimes I think our quick shift to the hybrid world has actually created a lot of democratization in terms of access, right? Because, for example, if I happen to be seated here in my corporate headquarters, I can run into someone in the break room or in the elevator, but I don't have that same experience with my colleague in China or Berlin. So when you have a hybrid meeting and a hybrid experience, you're able to really democratize that. And it's really important, I believe, that companies tune into that and ensure that the technology matches the need so that you can lift up all these voices and that you can give a consistent experience to your people across the world. This is important for me as an HR professional, as a business leader, and as you noted, for our client companies as well. So that's where sort of the audio comes in. Having really good quality audio is about equity too, because if I'm participating in a meeting and I'm really struggling to hear, I'm going to disengage a little bit. I'm not going to have the full experience. And then when it's my turn to contribute and lift up my voice, if I'm breaking up or someone's struggling to hear me, my contributions might get lost. So providing solutions that just make that happen, like facilitate that experience, I think is what Shure is all about, and something we're continuing to nurture and explore in terms of our technological advancements.
So thank you. So let's dip a little deeper into that, what meeting equity means. So I'll tell you some of the things that I do with my clients to help them have effective hybrid meetings. What we do is we focus on really making sure that virtual participants aren't second-class citizens, because that's a major issue. And one of the issues we identified is that virtual participants do have trouble hearing and distinguishing who is actually speaking at the moment. So it really helps to have very good AV, which includes very good microphones with distance pickups and cameras that focus on the person who's speaking while also panning the room and seeing what other people are observing. Now, another thing that we do is to make sure that everyone is seated facing the camera as opposed to facing each other who is in the room. And therefore, there's much more of an equal experience. And the people who are seated facing the camera, there's also a screen there, so they can see the screen. And we also appoint a facilitator for the meeting, because you already have the facilitator, who's typically the team leader, who's managing the meeting in the room. but you also really want to have a facilitator who's managing the virtual participants, because it's really hard to manage both virtual and in-person participants. So the virtual participants are managed by this virtual meeting facilitator who does things like monitor chat and see how people are reacting with emojis and so on. And so those are some tactics that I use for my clients, teach my clients to help them have meeting equity. Can you reflect on that and tell me a little bit more about the tactics that you use that I haven't covered? What do you think of some of the best practices that would help have meeting equity?
Right. Well, I think you've touched on most of the best practices, and I would build on that by saying that you might need to step back. People might need to step back and think about the fact that we need to do some skill building, because some of those techniques that you spoke to are not something that perhaps we grew up with or that we experienced when meetings were more typically in person. So we've done that at Shure. We've done a lot of management training around how to embrace a remote workforce and how to kind of shift your thinking around managing to results. But I think with that comes the skill that you've described around how do you make sure that you're set up for success. We have technological solutions as well. You mentioned about the need to face the camera and things like that. What we're working on at Shure is smart solutions, things that anticipate those needs in a way that becomes more kind of almost invisible to the user. Cameras that and audio that's smart enough to recognize the speaker and also tamp down the voices of the non-speakers or the paper rustling or the sounds that can sometimes distract, especially for the experience on the far end of the call. So we call that smart solutions and smart technology. We're leaning into software to deliver some of that. And I think that we're going to see, and we already are seeing camera technology as well that does the same. So it's integrating all these things together and also being mindful of the physical space, the facility itself, and is it conducive to a good quality meeting experience? So all really important elements of meeting equity for sure, and things we're still working on. But I feel like some of these solutions are there and available through our product line and getting better all the time.
Okay, excellent. So you mentioned that you've done some training for your folks to help them managers manage hybrid teams and remote teams. Can you dig a little bit deeper into that? Let's double click on that and see what that looks like for you.
Yeah. Well, as I mentioned, we've been a company around for a very long time, and we not only design our own solutions and products, but we manufacture them as well. So shifting to the hybrid world was a pretty big change for us. And so what we've been honing in on is helping leaders think about two things. One, individualized leadership. So managing people based on how to get the best out of them as individuals, as opposed to having one set of rules, one set of policies, one set of practices. How do you get the best out of each of your individual contributors? Secondly, shifting away from this concept of FaceTime and being very aware of results orientation. It no longer should matter, at least in the professional workforce, it shouldn't really matter too much where you're getting your work done, or even to some extent when you're getting that work done. It's really about what you deliver and what you're bringing forward in terms of contribution. So helping managers build the skills around how to set good objectives that are measurable and then manage to those has been really part of our journey. And I think it is paying off. We're going to continue to work on this over time and provide additional modules and additional learning experiences, but it seems to be resonating. And what I can say is our associate base, our employees are very, very thankful that we've embraced hybrid and they are delivering results and they are delivering great work product. And we're meeting their needs too. So it feels like the right balance.
Excellent. So managing the results, I think is very, very critical for effective hybrid work and remote work. So what I'm doing with other companies is breaking down the typical quarterly or annual OKRs, objectives and key results, or whatever KPIs, whatever they're measuring, into weekly ones, having weekly performance evaluations, where there is still some face time, but the face time comes in those weekly one-on-ones where the good managers already have weekly one-on-ones. Now, those also have a performance evaluation component, where at each weekly one-on-one, manager and the employee develop 3 to 5 weekly goals, which are components of those OKRs that be broader for the quarter, for the year. That would be a component of that, and ideally making them as smart as possible, meaning specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and timely. And then, yep, and then before the next meeting, 24 hours before the next weekly one-on-one, the supervisee sends a report to their supervisor saying what they accomplished on their 3 to 5 goals, what they struggled with, and how they would evaluate themselves. And then that weekly performance evaluation one-on-one, they would discuss that. The manager would coach them on how to solve problems better. They would agree or revise the performance evaluation, which would get fed into a continuous performance management system. And then they would agree on 3 to 5 weekly goals going forward. So I'm curious, that's a system that I've developed and helped integrate with clients, and that has worked out well. What does it mean for you to have those performance results at Shure?
Yeah, I love the system that you've just described. I think it's really interesting because it feeds a really important need to manage with intentionality in the hybrid workspace and have those really important connection points. But it sounds like you're structuring around that with performance goals and almost like bite-sized pieces. We have not gone there yet. We still manage with annual goal setting, but we do leverage our performance management system, which allows for kind of a continuous loop of feedback and record keeping and note sharing between the employee and their manager. And perhaps we'll move directionally towards where you're advising your clients to go. But primarily what we're trying to help our managers think about is really those goals themselves, and how are people progressing against the milestones, and how are they delivering in terms of the end result, as opposed to, are you there right when I needed you, down the hall?
Absolutely. That's really important. It's important to give people autonomy and trust. After the interview, I'll send you a copy of my book, which describes how to do that system.
Thank you.
Now, you're welcome. What are your thoughts about what will be the future of hybrid work and remote work at Shure? So it sounds like one of the things you might be going toward is having more of that bite-sized performance management approach, which definitely has been useful for my clients to address some of the misalignment that happens over the annual period. And that has been really helpful. So I'm curious what your thoughts are on the future direction of Shure and hybrid work and remote work.
Yeah, if I could, maybe I'll give you a little context to explain how we landed where we landed with our own philosophy around the hybrid workplace. And I think it's going to inform our future direction quite clearly as well. So we were dipping our toe in the water of the idea of the hybrid work model. I was calling it nomadic workers. Just before the pandemic hit, we had started our first pilot around that. And then the world shifted under our feet and did change like just so rapidly.
Sure.
So everyone pivoted who could into the remote working environment. And what we learned through that experience is that it was a scary time, and there were a lot of stressors on our associates, and their well-being was first and foremost in our mind. But as time went on, people began to see some of the benefits of working remotely or working from home. And they started to ask, what was our position on that post-pandemic? So we stood up a cross-functional committee to really dig deep. And I'd say the number one thing that we did, Dr. Gleb, is we listened. We went out, we did focus groups, we talked to our colleagues, we did surveys, and we kept everyone informed along the way. I know you're a big proponent of regular and steady communications, and I think that's so important. And we wanted everyone to know that we were looking at this and we wanted to get it right, because we wanted to set the future in motion. And I think we did get it right. And I think maybe that listening tour sort of benefited us compared to some of the companies that you've seen sort of go through fits and starts in terms of their hybrid work model. We chose to embrace radical flexibility. We allow every associate to make the decision as to whether or not they want to be 100% remote, hybrid, or want to come into the office, and to what extent and how often and when. We're not prescriptive at all. And we did come up with guiding principles, and they're all around things that matter, like results matter, productivity matters, flexibility matters. You said it, trust absolutely matters. Community still matters, but we do believe in our people, and they are delivering under this model. And I'm really proud of the way that we tackled it. As far as what the future holds, we're staying the course. We believe the hybrid work world is not only here to stay, but is probably only going to accelerate. And so what we're doing is continuing as a committee and as a team to revisit what we've put in motion, make sure it's still working. You know, don't rest on our laurels, keep the conversation going, evolve, refine. But I think that we need to just, feed the spirit of what the hybrid work model provides to our people. And through that, to the business outcomes. The business results are what matter. And I think there's a very important connectivity and correlation between being heard and feeling supported and being treated in terms of the whole well-being of the person, and then the business results that are yielded from those colleagues.
I think that's really valuable that we're ending with the point of business results. That's where it's all coming from, the customer service, client success, and business results. Excellent. Well, thank you very much for sharing your expertise. It was very helpful.
Oh, my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
And thank you to the audience for checking out another episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. Please make sure to subscribe to the show wherever you check this out, and please leave a review. It really helps others discover the show, and it helps us improve the show. All right, everyone. I look forward to seeing you in the next episode of the Wise Decision Maker Show. In the meantime, the wisest and most profitable decisions to you, my friends.